A Cyprus International Trust is probably the best privacy, tax optimization and asset protection vehicle in the whole European Union, especially for high net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals. Hey everybody, it's Ricardo Gorski, the founder of Tax One, where we help individuals and businesses relocate to low tax jurisdictions. And in this video, I'm going to talk about everything you need to know about the Cyprus International Trust, the CIT, so definitely watch the video until the very end. Alright, let's start with why the Cyprus International Trust is so interesting, and for that we have two big reasons. Number one, asset protection and privacy. The main advantage of a CIT is probably that the legal ownership of assets is being changed to beneficial ownership. And this means that once assets have been placed into a trust, the initial owner of these assets is not owning them anymore. And exactly that has a very specific advantage, and that is that these assets then can't be seized or claimed anymore by any creditors, claimants, and not even during a divorce or during bankruptcy of the settlor. Now, that's not all, because no party and no individual that is in any way involved in the trust is obligated to disclose information about the associated accounts, assets, or the associated individuals from this trust. And this makes a Cyprus International Trust effectively anonymous, because everything is hidden behind curtains, and only if there is a criminal case involved and the information about the trust will help solve this criminal case, only then the Cyprus courts and the law can provide or request information about the trust. The trust deed is not even a public document, and the settlor as well as the beneficiaries are nowhere registered as the owners of the assets. All of this, alongside many other benefits, creates possibly the best legal entity for high nets and ultra high nets that value security, privacy, anonymity, wealth protection, as well as tax benefits, of course. And this leads to benefit number two, because a Cyprus International Trust bypasses inheritance, intestacy, will and probate, laws, rules and taxes, and the assets go directly to the beneficiaries. Let's take a real-life example. We recently spoke to a very wealthy individual that resides in the UK under their non-dom scheme. Now, very interesting, because this very individual is retired for many years already. And in the UK, the inheritance tax, the EIHT, used to be or is currently under a domiciled-based system, meaning non-doms in the UK are currently not subject to their inheritance tax. But after the changes that will probably take place on April 6th, 2025, the inheritance tax will change to a residence-based system, meaning after a simple residence test, which is a joke in the UK by the way, every resident will be liable for their inheritance tax, which is a huge disadvantage for all beneficiaries. But with a Cyprus International Trust, even if the settlor and the beneficiaries are not residing in Cyprus but in a high-tax jurisdiction like the UK for example, the benefits of the Cyprus International Trust still applies. And the same applies on other taxes under a CIT, on income or wealth in general, given that a proper tax structure is in place, and this is something Tax One assists you with, of course. Some other tax benefits of a CIT are, for example, 0% capital gains tax, 0% dividend tax, 0% tax on interest and royalty income, and many others. However, as this can be very individual, we always recommend to get an individual consultation call, and you can reach out to us on tax.one. Now, those are the main benefits of a Cyprus International Trust, and now let's look at how a CIT actually works, how it operates, how you can set it up, and how much it costs, of course. In a trust arrangement, there are basically four parties involved. Number one, the settlor, and this is the individual that actually places the assets as the initial owner into the trust. The settlor can be a natural person but also a legal entity. It's just important that during the year of the establishment of the trust, This individual is not residing in Cyprus and also not a tax resident of Cyprus. This is basically what the law says, but after the establishment of the trust, this individual can relocate to Cyprus, enjoy the non-dom benefits for example here, and become a tax resident. Number 2, the trustee, and this person will then hold and manage the assets in the trust for the beneficiaries under certain terms. There can be multiple trustees, it can also be a natural person, a legal entity, and at least one trustee actually must reside in Cyprus at all times. Number 3, the beneficiary, one or multiple individuals that will then receive the benefits of the trust under set terms. By law, the beneficiaries should also not be tax residents or residents of Cyprus during the year of the establishment of the Cyprus International Trust. Number 4, the protector. And this can be an optional party involved in the trust's arrangements that has the power to veto, but it's not obligated to have a protector. So, I'd say that a Cyprus International Trust is the ideal entity for high net worth individuals that own a lot of immovable assets like real estate for example, but also liquid assets like cash, stocks, bonds, or even digital investments. For family offices, this is almost always a topic. Now, the setup. The setup and the management actually is a highly regulated domain and service that can only be exercised and offered by licensed professionals that we have in our team. So again, it's definitely worth reaching out to us via text.one. Regarding the costs for the setup and management of a CIT, I'd say that it is a rather expensive exercise if you compare it to a company formation, for example, but you need to have the benefits and advantages in front of your eyes, and you also need to understand what clientele this is for. To give you some numbers, I'd say to set up a Cyprus International Trust, we are looking at the price range of 4,000 to 5,000 euros maybe, and in order to maintain it, you will have annual expenses of about 7,000 to 8,000 euros maybe, and also there is a fee based on the valuation of the trust. In the UK, for example, this can be as high as 2%. In Cyprus, the Big Four, for example, charge a little bit less. We at TaxOne, we charge somewhere between 0.1 to 0.3% based on the valuation of the trust. However, this is not always the case, so you should definitely get your individual quotation. So if you look at it from this side, a Cyprus International Trust can be 10 to 20 times cheaper compared to a UK trust fund, and you don't even have benefits nearly as good as here in Cyprus. So after all, there are always people interested in a trust, and I'd say it makes sense for individuals that own assets worth at least 7 figures. And by the way, it's also worth mentioning that the Cyprus International Trust instrument is reviewed and approved by the European Commission, as Cyprus is a full member of the European Union since 2004. Once established, the benefits and terms of a Cyprus International Trust will stay forever, and if you're interested in setting up a Cyprus International Trust or anything else regarding Cyprus or lowering your taxes, definitely reach out to us via text.one and we will speak soon.